In previous years and nowadays, most of wars have been about nuclear weapons, oil, territorial conflicts, and overall dominance. But in the future, the upcoming wars will be over other things that are different and more important than the past. Good morning, everyone. My name is Abdulrahman Kamil, and I'm thrilled to be here today to introduce our topic, which is uncovering the consequences of water scarcity on the agricultural productivity. And our case study is described to be from the GC region during the period from 2001 to 2020. And given our agenda for today, we will start first with a brief overview about our research. Okay, throughout history, agriculture has been one of the most important sectors in most of the countries in the world. However, recently, the technological advancements have become one of the most essential aspects for the whole world. So, what if, in the future, the whole world suffers from a shortage of food and water, as well as the desertification of agricultural land? I think that at that point, the situation will shift, and the people will strive to fulfill their fundamental necessities in order to just survive in the world. So mainly this paper focuses on the importance of saving water and increasing agricultural output, and also focus on the countries that give a high priority to the agricultural sector and saving water for the future, such as the G3 countries. And moving forward to our research question, which will be aligned with our research objective, in order to know what are the consequences of water scarcity, agricultural emission, and agricultural freshwater overflow on the crop production, and will the increase of fertilizer consumption and the national income per capita could have positive impact on the crop production or not. And here in our research background, we mainly focus on our dependent variable, which is the crop production index out of 100. Basically, this index demonstrates the agricultural output for each year in each country, and the higher than 100 is the better. So as we see here in this figure, starting from the beginning of 2000, we will notice that most of the GC countries, their crop production was almost average and could be low, except for Saudi Arabia and the Emirates. And it's mainly because after the independence of Saudi Arabia and the Emirates, they started to prioritize the agricultural sector in order to achieve food security and do not rely on food imports. However, there is a huge drop in the crop production for the Emirates and Saudi Arabia, and it's mainly because of the food crisis that happened after 2009, and also a political problem which had indirectly affected the trade in Emirates since the sanctions imposed on Iran. And after 2011, we noticed that the crop production started to increase progressively until 2020, and unfortunately we don't have recent data, but if we have recent data till 2023, we'll find that the crop production is continuing to increase. This is mainly because many of the domestic investments in our agricultural sector and many of the agreements that have been implemented from the GC countries with other European countries in order to enhance their productivity in agriculture. In addition, also, there is activity came from investing in agricultural land abroad from the whole of the GC countries, other countries such as Kenya, Sudan, and Ethiopia. Here in our literature review, we mainly focus on our main themes. One of them is the low dimension return. Thomas Malls, David Ricardo, and John Stuart are the main contributors to the low dimension return. They basically state that as one input variable increase, the marginal output will decrease after a certain point, which leads to decrease the overall productivity. And since this theory, and this theory will be related to our main variable, which is the crop production index, to discover the paradox behind with how we could increase the crop production without decreasing the marginal productivity. And as for IFC, Ram review states that the individual behavior is influenced by intentions, which are shaped by our attitude and subjective norms. And also to decide the role of personal beliefs, which have had influences by the social influences and other things, in order to understand and predicting the human action. So since this is more closely related to psychology, it has been related to our main variables in order, because if we change the behavior of our consumers about the consumption of water, this will address a significant part of the problem. And here our better framework, which will be also aligned with our research hypothesis. The past studies during 2019 to 2023, they all proved that there is a positive impact from our development drivers on the crop production. And here in our formula model, the CBI stands for crop production index, agriculture with city emission, level of water stress, net national income per capita, agriculture freshwater withdrawal, fertilizer consumption, and finally the E stands for the air return. And we use panel data in this model in order to discover the impact of our development variable on the crop production in many countries. And I'd like to note that we removed the AFW variable due to high multi-linearity based on the BIF test. Okay, so as clearly the descriptive tested, there is no large disparity between the maximum and the minimum of our values, except for there is a little bit of difference in simulation and level of water stress. And this difference mainly came from the large disparity of the land area in each country, the GC country. So for example, the area in Saudi Arabia is definitely higher than or greater than the area in Kuwait or Bahrain. Therefore, the output that came from the simulation or even the level of water stress will be definitely higher than in Saudi Arabia, higher than in Kuwait or Bahrain. And in correlation matrix, it shows us the correlation between our independent variables. It reveals here that there is a negative significant correlation between the methane emission and fertilizer consumption, and positive correlation between methane emission and level of water stress. And as for level of water stress, there is a positive correlation between it and the net national income per capita. And almost there is no high correlation between those variables, except for there is a little bit of correlation between the net national income per capita and the level of water stress. And this mainly came from the inefficiency in irrigation, which leads to increased level of water stress, and at the same time increase agricultural output, which leads at the end increase the net national income per capita. And as for the correlation here, it's not high enough, but still there is a negative correlation. And it's because the whole world suffers from increasing the price of fertilizers, which lead to the farmers stop producing products that need more fertilizers and reduce other products. Therefore, there could be a negative correlation between the fertilizer consumption and at the same time the same emission increase. And as regarding the unit root test, it measures the level of speciality in order to discover the level of fluctuations of each variable in each country and each year. And it reveals that most of our data are especially at first difference rather than non-special. And here in our parametric model, first of all, we start with the ordinary least square model. And it reveals that the methane emission has positive significant impact and the fertilizer consumption is the same on the crop production input. And the effect factors of the whole model shows that the whole model is significant. On the other side, the R squared is very weak, and the double model shows a positive correlation. So that's why we move to the next model, which is the effect model, which states that the level of water stress becomes significant with the other variables, but still the R squared is very weak, and the double model shows a positive correlation. So that's not much of a So that's why we move to our next model, which is a fixed effect model in order to enhance our R squared. And it actually becomes better at 55%, but still, the Doppler Watson shows positive correlation, and also the other variables become insignificant except for the level of water stress. So that's why we do our final model, which is the fixed effect SUR model. Because in our case, number of years is higher than the number of cross-section units, which could lead to imbalance in data. So we do this model in order to reduce and treat the problem of heterogeneity and autocorrelation. And actually, the R squared become higher at 83%, and most of our values become significant except for fertilizer consumption. And the liberal still shows a positive correlation, but at least it becomes a little bit better than other models. And in order to prove that fixed effect SUR is the better model in our case, we do the Hosmer test, and it reveals that the probability of chi-square was under 10 which means that we reject the null hypothesis, and therefore the Husband test supposes that the fixed effect model is better than the random effect model. And based on the unit root test, which states that most of our data are especially at first reference, we do the Arden model, and it reveals that the same emission is significant positive, has significant positive impact, and fertilizer consumption has led to a significant impact on the crop production. And as for methane emission, it is positive because of, in the past, most of the agricultural activities in the three countries were very primitive, which lead to increased methane emissions. And as for fertilizer consumption, one of the main type of fertilizer, which is ammonia, in the GC countries, this type is not reduced, as well as the urea fertilizer is still relatively small until nowadays. And now we'll see a short video discuss why the whole world does not reduce the ammonia, the fertilizer that contains ammonia, not only in the GC countries.
يعني اخر كده مفيش امونيا يبقى مفيش اسمده نيتروجينيه صناعيه. الفكره بقى هي ان الامونيا نفسها انتاجها بيعتمد بشكل اساسي على الطاقه. يعني التفاعل اللي بيتم ما بين النيتروجين والهيدروجين واللي بينتج عنه في الاخر الامونيا بيتم بدرجه حراره تتراوح ما بين 400 و500 درجه مئويه. وهنا بقى الاشكال، لانك عشان تصنع الامونيا لازم يكون عندك كميات كبيره من الغاز او الفحم علشان توفر لك الطاقه اللازمه. وزي ما انتم عارفين وزي ما شرحت لكم قبل كده في حلقات سابقه، سوق الغاز الطبيعي وسوق الفحم الاثنين بيعانوا من ازمه كبيره جدا في الشهور الاخيره. اسعارهم في السنه معروض منهم في السوق قليل.
So that's why there's a negative impact from fertilizer consumption on the crop production index, which means that crop production could increase at the same time the fertilizer consumption decrease. And in the other model short run, it reveals that there's a negative significant impact from the methane emission and positive significant impact from the level of fertilizers. And as for the methane emission, it is negative because many of R&D expenditure and investment that happened or implemented recently in the GC countries in order to reduce the agricultural methane emissions, and also the activities that we said before that they start to invest in abroad in agricultural land, it leads to decrease in methane emissions in the countries. And as for the water stress, it is positive because the whole world suffers from water scarcity because of many reasons: high evaporation rate, water scarcity, scarcity of rainfalls, and the GC region suffer from this factor doubles that any other region due to their location. And in the other model, the country will take into consideration the lag of 2 years for each variable to discover the impact on each country. And it reveals that the methane emission and the level of water stress has the same result such as Arden model short run. And as for fertilizer consumption, it was the same as the Arden model long run, except for Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Oman. It's mainly because of many agreements that have been implemented with other European countries in order to enhance the quality of fertilizers, to increase their production, and at the same time try to decrease the reliance on water and to reduce the methane emission. And as for net national income per capita, it is positive in most of the GC countries because basically we talk about the GC countries, the region that has the most of oil contribution in the world. So that's why the income per capita is always increasing, at the same time increasing the crop production. And for the other diagnostic test, the normality test, the probability of the Jacob error states that it is insignificant, which means that we don't reject the null hypothesis, so the error term is normally distributed. And for the cross-section dependence, the first two methods state that there are significant, which means that we reject the null hypothesis, so there is a cross-section dependence in those tests. And for the other method, it shows that it's all insignificant, which means that we don't reject the null hypothesis, so there is no cross-section dependence. And for the VIF test, it shows that there is no high multi-hierarchy between the variables of each other, and also the mean VIF come at 1.4 filter than and lower than with agricultural fish water goes through, so that's why we use this variable. And for the heterospecific test, the probability of its value was significant, which means that rejected the null hypothesis, so unfortunately our model suffers from heterospecific model. So that's why we do our final model, which is the GFS model, to treat this problem. And The only variable that was insignificant that can affect the effectiveness of our model, it becomes now in this model significant after we treat the problem of heterogeneity. And for the discussion of hypothesis, as we mentioned before in the empirical framework, most of the studies proved that there is a positive significant impact of the crop production. It was also the same in our case in our model, except for the methane emission and the fertilizer consumption, as we mentioned before in the other model, long run and short run. So we could say that they are both partially supported with other studies. Okay, so in conclusion, this paper mainly emphasizes the importance of agriculture, food security, and also water conservation for the future. And also focus on the GC countries because despite its was and oil-dependent industries, and despite the challenges they face like desert lands, high temperature, high climate change, scarce rainfall, these countries still remain committed to finding a solution for the simple future and more agricultural output and not rely on the food imports. So this paper mainly try or aim to enlighten the whole world to give a high priority to the agricultural sector. And finally, after we finish this paper, there are three recommendations. Firstly, the government should reduce more taxes and provide loans for small food supply chain. And the firms should invest more in agro-food tech. And for consumers, they should implement smart irrigation and conserve water. And overall, they should raise awareness about water consumption. And last but not least, I'd like to thank Dr. Lab for everything she did with us from day one. And also I'd like to thank Dr. Maya and Dr. Ismail for giving from their time to revise our paper. And also can't forget to thank our TA, Dr. Nadine El-Gondi. Actually, without her, this paper wouldn't have been done. And I'd like to also thank my friends, my family, especially my mother. And thank you.